Hello and welcome back to the Naked Academy, Module 1, Part 2, Creating Adherence. So you should have done Part 1 already, so without further ado, let's crack on into Part 2. So let's get into the agenda and the specific agenda. May have just got a little confused there, things going through my head, I'm trying to get all this done. But yeah, the agenda into what we're going to be looking into in Module 2. Introduction into naked foods. So strip it all right back, label it naked foods. So we're looking at the raw core basics and going forward. We're then going to go into introduction into processed foods, which is the other flip of the coin. Processed foods, we're going to be looking at what they can and can't do for us, the benefits and negative about it, and then we're going to go into the 80-20 principle. With the 80-20 principle, we'll just be going into what we should be doing 80% of the time, and then how we're going to split the other 20% down. And then we're going to have a hydration overview, and then following on with the importance of tracking food. It may not be for everybody, but even if you're a beginner through to more, this one little implement that we can see should get you long-lasting results. So with that said, let's jump straight into the sustainability is key, and the best diet in the world is the one that you can stick to. See, that's what all adherence is all about. If you can't stick to it, you're not going to succeed. So it's the way that we're going to be looking forward, promoting going forward, of being a long-term success. And relentless restrictions equals rapid rebound. Quite simply, if you restrict yourself drastically, that once you obtain that goal, once you get down to your ideal weight, wherever you're going to be, you're instantly going to then go back to the old ways of eating. So quite simply, if a program come out where you're going to lower your fats, your carbohydrates, all following Weight Watchers, Slimming World, whatever, keto, whatever diet plans are all out there, they're all done by slowing down or taking away a food item, food source. So once you finish, got down to your ideal weight, they've not really taught you anything to go forward. So then you're going to go back to the old ways of eating, and then that's where the rapid rebound comes back in. So here's a very fantastic stat for you. 95.4% of calorie-controlled diets fail long term. And with those odds, those odds are higher than if you were going to go and quit something, say like smoking, cold turkey. So having said that, this is why we're here now, because we're going to be looking at trying to reduce that down, and teaching you the key benefactor figures and facts on long-term success. Then we must learn to forego the small prizes now for the big prizes later. Quite simply, if you purchase things on a credit card beginning of the month, and you don't pay them off, and you go forward, and then that month rolls over, and that rolls over, then you pay it back with interest. So we're looking at deferring that now. So having said that, what we need to look at is ask yourself this question. You should not create a lifestyle diet, but instead ask this question: can I do this for the rest of my life? I want you to ask that question throughout this whole course, especially this section. What I want you to do at the end of it is to think, oh my God, I've bitten off more than I can chew. And it's not to say not to start this, because it seems a little bit scary, but the foundations and the flooring that we're building up now is going to make you long-term successful. Takes us on to something called flexible dieting. So this is a great introduction on how we can get that done. Commonly known within the fitness industry as IIFYM, and that stands for If It Fits Your Macros. And this is broken down into the parts that we talked about earlier, about proteins, fats, carbs and alcohol. And quite simply, how it works is you calculate the numerical value of each food. For example, your chicken breast, say it's 100 grams of chicken breast, that would be 22 grams of protein, 2 grams of fat, and no carbohydrates. And basically you input that into your software we've downloaded, which then breaks down, and you break it, and it builds up your portfolio of what you're going to be looking at for the day. So it'll break down into your daily protein, fats, and everything else. So then we look at that oversight. But the old school of this is basically saying that you can eat whatever you want and still lose weight. But you also need to eat accordingly to your macronutrient breakdown. So what you use is an application such as MyFitnessPal to track your calories. But as I've said, it's often used as an excuse to eat what the hell you like to hit your protein, carbs and fat targets. I'll give you an example of that. So you could use ice cream, cakes, biscuits for your fats. You could use Twinkies, chip shop chips, you name it, for your carbs, and you can have protein shakes for your protein source. Now, do you seriously want to go down that route and have the pain and suffering, or is there going to be a more sensible way to be able to get that flexible diet in with making use of nutritious macronutrient foods that's going to nourish your body with all the vitamins and minerals that you're going to require? But what is the Naked Nutrition model? Well, it's a modified version of flexible dieting. Say 80 to 90% of your calories should come from the naked foods that we recommend. The remaining 10 to 20 calories from non-naked foods. What's meant by non-naked foods? Well, that's the processed foods and the little subject foods that we talk about. So let's go into a bit more detail. If I turn around and said for the whole process that you're not allowed to have ice cream, chocolate, cakes or whatever else, you're not really going to stick to this long term. So by using the 80-90% of your calories from the naked foods and that 10 to 20 gives you a little bit of flexibility to be able to have a chocolate bar or a cake for somebody's birthday or whatever going forward. Because optimally, if I turn around and said to you that you're not allowed to have something, the one thing that you're going to be thinking about is that one item. So if I said not to have an ice cream, all you're going to be thinking about is that ice cream. If you wanted a pint of beer, you're going to want a pint of beer. Glass of wine, etc, etc. You see the scenario going through from that. Next, remember, foods are not labelled good or bad. Please, please, please do not label your food good or bad. Food is nutrition no matter in what form it comes in. But sticking to the adherence of what I've put above, the 80-90 and the 10-20, you should be able to then look at food of a different light. Finally, always remember that nutrition is personalised to you. Remember, it's not a one-size-fits-all, so what is tailor-made to you may not be for somebody else. It's the same as like workouts. You know, this is about the nutrition side of things, so it is personalised to you and you alone. As your weight decreases, increases, so will your macronutrients, so everything else. So we need to keep a steady eye onto that and to then be able to hit your personal goal. So what is naked foods? Well, naked foods are the cornerstone of naked nutrition success. What is it? The single ingredient food that nourish our bodies and provide a nutrition value alongside a caloric one. So for some of you that may seem a bit gobbledygook, but basically let me try and elaborate on that and explain a bit more. So a single food ingredient is something like an apple. What else is an apple? Well, nothing. It's an apple, so there's nothing else inside it. Whereas if you take a pizza, there's about 10 items in there, and in them 10 items there could be another 100 items. So you can see the difference between a single ingredient and multiple ingredients. So in turn, we're looking at getting the nutritional value from these foods, the single ingredient foods. Things where the bees have been pollinating our honey and different things, so we can get the macronutrients of all the added benefits rather than the highly processed multiple layered things to confuse everything. So we're just going to break everything all down to them single food ingredients. So why is it important? Well, basically it provides the body with all the vitamins and minerals and other nutrients needed for a healthy foundation. So how would you identify a naked food? Well, quite simply, we'll be looking at across. If it was something like a broccoli, or basically from in the ground, if it was grown in the ground, or if it was a cow on the fields, or if it was a pheasant flying in the air, or a fish that was swimming in the sea. So quite simply, it's the raw basic ingredients from anything that was grown on the ground, living on the ground, flying in the air, or from the water from around our isles. And the golden rule that we can look at is if you can grow it or kill it, then you can eat it. Another little tip as well is if it's a byproduct from one of the animals, so if it was say a chicken and we've got eggs, then we could be able to eat them products as well, or caviar from fish, or milk from cows. There's a little bit more on that subject coming up shortly. So, processed foods. We have all become reliant upon convenience foods. This is so true. Ready-made available meals, sandwiches, crisps, microwave meals, you name it, all them kind of things are already available, and we've been so wrapped up in that. That's where we've got this epidemic coming through. So, what is processed foods? Foods that have been altered from their natural state. And yes, they can be problematic to us. Not always the case, because they do have their place in something, but they can cause quite a few problems. So basically what can happen with these processed foods is they might have been chemically changed or had enzymes removed that can quite actually damage our gut lining, give you leaky guts, etc., or disrupt our hormones, increase our cravings. Quite simply, Pringles, we use them for example. They use a slogan, once you pop, you just can't stop. How many times have you had 2 or 3 Pringles? That'll do, I'll save them for another day. Before we know it, the whole pack's gone. This then will increase into our calorie consumption, because we've not just had 1 or 2, we've then had the whole pack. And things like gluten and stuff like that can cause swelling within the gut, inflammation. So we try and steer away from bread if we can, but as I said before, like with the pizza and stuff like that, it can have its place at a certain point in time. So as I've said before about the processed foods, have their place. It could be a cheat meal, like some of you made them before, or various different things. What we need to try and do is keep that little element in that 10-20 bracket, because if I told you for the program that you're not going to be having ice cream, you're not really going to stick to it. I'll keep using ice cream for example, because that's mainly what most people have. But the idea is that we try and factor that in, and you learn the systematic places that we're looking at implementing, so you have long-term success going forward, allowing you to have that flexibility and going forward. So what are these, and how do we identify them? Well, quite simply, they're on the screen now. These are products with multiple ingredients, usually found in bags, packets or boxes. Ask yourself what your grandparents would have eaten, and also please note, an apple are apples and chicken is chicken. What do I mean by that? Well, an apple is an apple because an apple contains that single ingredient, it's an apple, and a chicken is a chicken. It's already got chicken, protein source in it, a little bit of fats, where a cake isn't just one of them or them, it's got multiple things in it that make up that multi-ingredient processed food. These foods are not bad. They are not. Donuts didn't make anyone sick, fat or unhealthy. It's the danger is in the dosage. So if you do not stick to the 20-10% rule that's laid out, and you don't allow yourself to have these little luxuries, you're not going to long-term sustainably stick to what we're going to be teaching you. But let's just clear one thing up. If you decide to skip breakfast one morning and you fill yourself full of caffeine, you then go around about 11 o'clock for your little break, and you pick up a donut because it's quite sugary and starchy carbohydrates. What's going to happen is your blood sugar level is going to spike up through the roof, and then come mid-afternoon they're going to drop back down again. You're going to then pick up a chocolate bar, crisps, etc., to then pick it back up, to then drop it back down again. So when you get home from work, you'll be scouring the cupboards to go and grab biscuits and cakes and whatever else. It then becomes a vicious circle. So if we can just try and keep it to that little percentage, allowing yourself to have something every so often, then you should be okay. So a little side note on hydration. Not many people cover this, but it is the #1 stipulation that I do get everybody to adhere to from the outset. The body is 75% water, and you should be looking at drinking between 2 and 3 litres of water per day. Now that is plain normal water, depending on where you are in the world. If it should be bottled water or straight from the tap, it doesn't really make much difference unless you're in certain countries where chloride and that gets really extremely high. But everyone should be looking at drinking this 2 to 3 litres per day, minimum realistically of 2 litres, and then a third litre made up of other aspects of tea, coffee, fruit teas, etc. Things to your water as well, like lemon, mint, cucumber, to make a refreshing change. Really struggling to get that much in per day? Set an alarm on fitness tracker, mobile phone, whatever, at 3-hour intervals, just to try and remember to make sure you're getting that water hydration inside you. Sometimes I take a 500ml bottle of water and make sure that if I haven't drank that within 3 hours, there's an alarm set off on my phone and I get ahead and drink that. And as previously mentioned, substitute your coffees, your fizzy drinks, your alcohol for even more water. A lot of people get confused, and some of these aspects can really play havoc, thinking that they need more than what they actually do, and get the confusion between being thirsty and being dehydrated. And then finally, last little bit about food tracking. You'll see at the bottom of the picture, there's a picture there of MyFitnessPal. It's changed a lot since then, but all those different elements. Essential to know what is driving your results, because the really important thing here is it holds you accountable for your choices of food. If technology is not your thing and you're all pretty much old school, then you could use a diary, notebook or anything else like that, to note it all down, and you can send it to me via a portal. That's not a problem, but it's always best to probably familiarise yourself with MyFitnessPal. The added bonus with MyFitnessPal is once you start getting into a routine, and if you look through the tutorials that we go through within this academy, you'll notice on it starts tracking different elements of your patterns and whatever else, so they become easy to find and follow. And then finally, what are the action steps about today? So #1, download, study and implement the Naked Lifestyle infographic and food substitution list. The lifestyle infographic is a great little diagram explaining everything that we've pretty much gone through today, and the food substitution list goes through with all the naked foods that we recommend 80% of the time. Watch the tutorials on food tracking with MyFitnessPal. It's so important that you get that done. And finally, make sure you visit the Naked Nutrition recipe library, where there's hundreds of mouth-watering meals for you to go and consume. So with all that said, I've been Down Power. Get cracking on that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.